Hello there and welcome back to another review. So keeping with that whole sort of animation vibe, as I've mentioned, I do like to mix things up on my channel and give you all a bit of variety on different movies and that kind of thing. So today I thought we'd have a look at probably one of the most acclaimed Batman movies that has ever been made, obviously Dark Knight trilogy aside. We're going to be having a look at 1993's Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Voice talents, of course, of Kevin Conroy and the ever dependable Mark Hamill, made, I think, between the first and second season of Batman the Animated Series. The plot and the elements were inspired, by Batman Year 1 and 2. Originally, this was going to be a direct-to-video release, but it was actually a film that was released theatrically. And since its release, it has been a lot of people's favourites list a lot in terms of Batman movies and things like that, and continues to receive acclaim as sort of, obviously the animated series does. It, continuously gets high praise and a lot of acclaim from critics and fans. Some even go as far to call Batman Mask of the Phantasm the best Batman movie. Obviously, that's all subjective, but it's definitely a contender. It's definitely up there. And I think if you were young in the 90s, this film, and you were a Batman film, this film would have a lot of resonance and memories for you as well. When originally released at the cinema, I don't think it originally done that well. I don't think it didn't do overly great, but this was a movie that really picked up steam, much like sort of Blade Runner did sort of years before. That really did pick up steam on the home media market when it was released sort of on VHS, and that's when it got, a lot of people were starting to pay attention to it. So what you get with this movie at its core is a love story, and the more you look at Mask of the Phantasm, it's actually quite a deep story as well, dealing with that notion of loss that really went places in terms of depth. It's only 1 hour 15 minutes long, and it just shows, yes, it's animation, but it just shows that a film doesn't always need to be 3 to 4 hours in length like so many filmmakers do now. It's amazing where this is regarded to be one of the best Batman movies. What you can do in just a simple time frame of just 1 hour 15 minutes, and as I say, it just shows. When you read up on this, it's quite impressive that the film just took 8 months to make. Now, a standard animation of this kind of caliber of this kind of would usually take around 2 years. So, I mean, this is a real testament to the powers that be, the creative team behind this movie that really, got the job done in 8 months. I'd imagine it was probably a bit of a grueling schedule, but that, they got it done in 8 months. I mean, at least I think 2 years was around sort of the time frame that it was for an animated feature back then. The whole movie really is a testament to the animated series as well back in the 90s, and just how good it was. And this film in a way sort of captures in one big bubble what made that series so good. Of course, nothing needs to be said about not enough praise can be given to sort of Kevin Conroy, because I mean, he is the perfect Batman, as we all know. The story is brilliant, and it really captures the whole Batman, just the essence of Batman. It really does capture them. One could argue more than any other film. This film very much embodies what Batman is, the Batman character and the Bruce Wayne character. Definitely in terms of, like I said, being true to what Batman is and the lore and things like that. As I say, regarded to be one of the best, not just best superhero movies, but definitely probably one of the best, animated ones as well. Mark Hamill, of course, is perfect as the Joker, and there's a reason why this film sits high on a lot of people's lists, because it is, as I say, it's very much of the time, and I remember it very fondly growing up. I remember, again, it was one of these films that it seemed like every kid I knew had, for whatever reason, whether they were Batman fans or whatever. Obviously, the Tim Burton franchise was sort of just come off sort of Batman Returns at that point, and so, like I say, the Batman animated series was doing incredibly well, and it sits high on a lot of people's lists. It's one of them films as well that as you watch it, you enjoy it, but not think if you've never seen it, you might watch it the first time and not think straight away, oh, that's a masterpiece, that's one of the best movies of all time. It's only when the movie is over and you look at the whole film sort of as a whole, as a narrative and the plot and what happens in the movie, that it just makes it's when you look at it as an overall what happens, that the film really does shine in how good it is the plot and what it was doing with the characters and things like that. And to that, to that end, The Mask of the Phantasm deserves and continues to get so much claim. So you get a great opening shot to the movie with like the great score taking over, with the choir contributing as the cinema, like the camera pans around the CGI city. Really is epic in nature. I mean, at the cinema, this must have been quite epic, just in the way it looks. So 10 seconds in, and we're already better than the Mortal Kombat Journey Begins film that I reviewed previously. So Batman crashes in on this crook, Chucky Soul, and whilst Chucky escapes, this mysterious figure approaches in the car park, who Chucky believes to be Batman at first. So even though, even Soul manages to escape the Phantasm, he just has to get greedy and decides to turn the car around in order to run. I mean, he got away, but into just being who he is, Chucky Soul, he turns the car around and decides to order to run over the Phantasm. In doing so, this sort of leads to his demise, and he ends up crashing the car. And you have to love the writing in this movie too. The script they've done a fantastic job with the script, with Alfred saying to Bruce, "You are as sane as anybody. By the way, I've pressed your tights and put your exploding gas balls away." Just little things like that. That it still has a bit of humour in regards to sort of the relationship between Alfred and Bruce. So we go to a banquet that is happening, and Bruce isn't having much luck with the ladies, and Councilman Arthur Reeves is like teasing him about an old flame, Andrea Beaumont. And then we have a flashback of how her and Bruce both met at a cemetery, and that is what is interesting so much about this movie. I would say probably just under a third is told in flashback, and that as there is flashbacks, it gives the film a lot more depth and a lot more weight. Because as I mentioned at the start, in essence, it really is sort of a love story. But it really does make the film a bit more personal. It drives home. It makes you feel like you know Bruce a lot more and sort of what he's going through. And it really does touch on some interesting and very dramatic themes throughout the movie. As I say, it's told in flashback, and it gives the whole story that notion of, like I say, love, and like the passage of time as well is another thing that is like a constant theme here. I mean, I can't praise Kevin Conroy enough he was just the perfect Batman. He's just, as we all know. Then we have like a masked Bruce beating the crap out of some guys. Me being me, when I first, watched this, and I was like, why isn't he Batman? At this point, I was like, why isn't he Batman? Because I was like, I always remember watching it and thinking, why hasn't he got the Batman? And of course, we're still in the flashback. I remember the first time, because that must have been, 8 or something when I first watched it. But we're still in the flashback, aren't we, depicting the early days as a crime fighter. So after a nice chase involving a lorry, Bruce is in training and learns that the crooks were not scared of him. That's what he doesn't understand. He's like, why were they not scared of me? Andrea turns up, and they sort of begin to get close. So back in the present, we see Buzz Bronski visiting Chucky's grave, and he gets approached by the Phantasm too, and ends up getting a statue sort of crushing to death as he falls into this open grave, and he can't get out. Once again, these goons think it's Batman that's doing this, because the Phantasm, it gives off the embodiment that it could be Batman, it might be Batman. Batman, a short time after, goes to investigate and finds the same chemical residue he found on Chucky's car. Andrea spots him at his parents' grave, and Batman spies on her having dinner right across from the building where they are when she goes out with Arthur. Then we have a flashback of him and Andrea at the World Fair, and she is like, I know you aren't ready to meet my dad, right? She's like, I know you're not ready to meet my dad. He's like, yeah, I'll meet him. She's like, right, I'll ring him up. Calls him right now. She doesn't hang around. She's very impatient for him to meet her dad. We see a young Arthur Reeves here on her father's legal team. The gangster Sal Valestra turns up as they leave. Outside, some thugs are hassling the guy for his cash box. Bruce makes a move, and he starts off well, but again, it's still, with these flashbacks, it's still in the early days of his crime-fighting abilities, and he ends up getting beat. The whole film taps into that notion of do we have a choice? That's another theme that plays through this. Sometimes we're just destined for other things, as well as giving the Joker more of an origin story in a sense too. So there's a lot going on here. The film could have easily just depended upon like some of the Rose Gallery villains and things like that, but they really do try and, with this film being as old as it is, it still feels fresh. It still feels like a great story, and it really does hold up. Then we get probably one of the weightiest scenes in terms of emotion in this movie, with Bruce at his parents' grave saying, "I know I made a promise, but I didn't count on being happy." And that's a really great line. Like Andrea, like she's like sort of changed what he was going to do, and he's torn between like sort of being Batman and being with her. So like Bruce is sort of, I didn't even think I would ever be happy, and it really, as I say, does give off a real emotional weight there. So Valestra picks up Arthur and wants to know if it's true that Batman is really going after people. Another flashback shows Bruce actually proposing to Andrea. There is a shady deal going on at her father's, and Bruce gets a note the next day saying basically it's all over. Andrea's sort of finished with him. What's interesting about these flashbacks is that rather than things actually getting better as the flashbacks go on and more of the story is revealed, what is interesting with these flashbacks is things actually get worse. Things actually get worse. Like, it starts off happy, all good intentions, everybody's okay, and it actually, as the flashbacks progress, they get worse and worse with what's happening to Bruce and Andrea and their relationship. We get snippets of him being Batman for the first time. Batman takes a photo from Valestra's place of him with Andrea's father. So at the Rundown Words Fair, we have the Joker. He's sort of now using that as his hideout, his sort of base of operations. And Valestra wants him to take care of the Batman for $5 million, because he thinks like Batman's going after the criminals and he's killing them and things like that. So he's like sort of, look, just take care of him. I'm scared. Can you get rid of him? Batman goes to see Andrea and wants to know where her father is, though she isn't helpful at all. After he leaves, she bursts into tears, showing she is like emotionally affected by this, and that obviously something has happened. So the Phantasm goes to kill Valestra, targeting all the people that were involved with her father's dealings, basically. But on arriving, he is already dead, killed by the Joker and planted with a bomb. After jumping to safety, Batman comes along in the Batwing, which he jumps out of to confront the mysterious figure. Then the police turn up in pursuit of him, thinking he is responsible as well for the other killings of the mobsters. And they send everything after him here. They got cops, SWAT guys, helicopters. You know, the police force are really after trying to get Batman here. They chase him down to a construction site. There's always a construction site, isn't there? Like, whether it's a Hong Kong action movie or a Batman animated feature, a construction site always does make an appearance. And after an explosion, Batman really gets injured here, and it's looking quite bleak. He even goes so far as to like lose his cow so he can escape. Andrea Ransley turns up to save him in her car, and this is when you sort of raise an eyebrow, because you're sort of, why is she there? How and why is Andrea Beaumont there? But you can sort of maybe see where this is going, you know. So then we get a flashback showing what happened that night with her father owing Valestra money, and that her father plans to flee, and he was sort of doing embezzling as well. And him and Andrea basically went on the run, is what happened. They basically went on the run. So this is why she broke up with Bruce. Even when her father could sort of pay them back, these gangsters still wanted blood. Proved that even with money was not ever going to be enough. At first, Bruce thinks like the Phantasm is sort of her father. Initially, he thinks it's initially sort of Andrea's father. Bruce and Andrea sort of get back together. This is when they are clever, is there's sort of a semi-twist, sort of as to who the Phantasm is. But the main twist for me was when Batman looks at a photo of her father and Valestra and recognises a young Joker in the background. It's nice they do bring the Joker into the film, and it sort of gives him like a bit more of an origin story, a bit more of a background to the Joker character. Joker goes to see Arthur and informs him the murderers aren't the Bat, because he says it's not his style. Like, obviously Joker probably knows Batman, or sort of not sympathises, but he can sort of maybe understand Batman a bit more than most people, and he's like, look, this is not the Bat style. Like, he wouldn't kill people. This is not what he would do. It's not in Batman's vein. So Arthur gets admitted to hospital after being infected with Joker's toxin, and he can't stop laughing. Batman turns up and wants to know why he met with Joker, and we learn Arthur Reeves sold her and her father out basically to the gangsters. So Joker figures out who the Phantasm is, so does Batman. Andrea is the masked killer basically. Batman goes to Andrea as an explosion from the Joker is sent. They both knew, but the Phantasm, Andrea sort of got and Andrea has gone to Joker's World Fair hideout, and they get into sort of an altercation. She goes to find the Joker as the Phantasm. Batman arrives by a bat bike, and I'm not sure how they both knew where Joker's hideout was. I mean, was it just public knowledge that's sort of where Joker was hiding out? Because they both seem to know where the Joker's hideout was. Maybe I've missed something in the movie with countless times I've seen it, but they know for some reason that the Joker's hiding at sort of the rundown World's Fair. Or, like, for example, I'm not sure if it's explained how she gets sort of these smoke powers that she uses. I'm sure many of you fans of this movie will know, or maybe it was expanded more in the comics or whatever it was, but it's not even explained sort of in the movie, at least, to my knowledge, where she sort of gets this smoke sort of ability that she uses. I'm sure many of you fans out there will know and be able to give me the answers. So Batman asks Andrea to leave, and like she loves him and things like that, and like Joker having like a showdown in this like miniature, him and Joker having like a showdown in this like miniature city where it sort of clashes with the Titans, and there's these small buildings, or it looks almost like a Godzilla-esque type of scene here, which makes it quite epic. These two Titans go really well done. After this, they have a fight on like a jetpack together. Andrea grabs Joker, and they sort of both disappear, during which the place blows up as Joker has rigged it with explosives, and Batman escapes via the water system. It's not explained sort of what happens to the Joker either. Like she has him, and then they're just gone. Again, I'm sure many of you out there's probably, I don't know if it was in the comics or whatever it may be. I'm sure many of you will know, but we learn after this that Andrea is still alive, but I don't think it's made clear exactly what happened to the Joker. But yeah, I'm sure many of you can fill me in. But it's a fantastic movie, and I say, above all else, it's a real testament to Kevin Conroy. It's a testament to Mark Hamill. It's a testament to the animated series. As I say, you have to remember at this time, I'd say Batman Returns was sort of the year before this movie, and Batman was very, very huge. I mean, he's huge now. I mean, Batman's always been popular, but especially in that time in the 90s, Batman was a big thing. The Batman movies were doing well, and this film as well, but it's a film that really earned its place on VHS and the home media market. But what I say, and for a film that is basically a kids movie, it's like the perfect Batman story, right? Without having to put large numbers, as I've mentioned, of the Rose Gallery in there. And it's just so entertaining. It's a wonderful film with a great story, great animation, great acting, and it's if you said, of all the Batman movies, I mean, regardless of what sort of medium is used, I mean, Batman and Mask of the Phantasm is definitely one worth checking out. So if you have seen this movie, let me know. Is it one of your favourite Batman movies? How would you rank it compared to sort of some of the other Batmans? What is your favourite Batman movie? What's the worst Batman movie? Make sure to leave a comment below, and I'll be trying to get through some more Batman movies, some of the more of the animated stuff and more superhero animated stuff, and I'll go take it from there. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. Make sure to go and check out Mask of the Phantasm if you haven't seen it, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.